Howdy folks, Tom Noble here in the Bay Area with a few little updates about Noble Ape. So, I think it was last month, SourceForge changed their site up, and I'd been maintaining a GitHub repository in parallel for the Noble Ape source code, but now GitHub is the place to get your Noble Ape related source code. So, github.com/Bravo Alpha Romeo Bravo Alpha Lima Echo Tango, my surname Barbale, /Noble Ape will get you the source code, and you can just download the zip of the source code, and it's everything that you're used to. Put a little stuff here associated with the general GitHub related connections, but that's where you get your Noble Ape source code now. And also, if you're not interested in the source code but you would like to get the latest version, this is the development version, the source code compiled. I currently have the Mac version available for download. And if you're running macOS 10.8, you may have some trouble. You have to turn on or turn off the App Store only download thing. I have paid the $99 to Apple to verify that I'm a legitimate developer, but for whatever reason, even with the signing with that license, unfortunately, it doesn't recognize me as a legitimate developer, which, if you know the history of Noble Ape, is rather curious in and of itself. Let's get to the new features. So, my favourite way to run the simulation now is through the command line. You can do it whatever way you like. So I ran this a little earlier. This is the second time I'm recording this. So let me just get this ready. But you just type cd, drag the simulation file in, cd contents, macos, /simulation c, and you have a version of the Noble Ape simulation running. So, one of the new features, dynamically scalable terrain window. Long time coming. Apologies, it's taken so long to come. It's a very nice feature, and really exactly what folk wanted. Apologies here also because the screen recorder takes a lot of processing power, so I can't get the beautiful movement that I normally expect to see. Okay, so, let's run the simulation forever. And some features while I've got the command line up. So, help. This is a bug that will soon be fixed. It's not really a bug, it's just a little bit too long. So what you can do is you can turn on seeing where all the events are. And there we go. If you just want to see the social events, that's the events involving multiple apes. And because it's dark, okay. So this is the social events. Something that interests me, which comes from a... Let's get this thing over. Comes from some of the work Bob Mottram did was the territories. So let's turn on the territories, turn off the weather. So what you're seeing here is the number of minutes, awake minutes, that this particular selected Noble Ape has spent in this particular territory. One of the things I want to add is kind of community naming of territories, which means that basically the apes, as they communicate, will refer to the territories that they're in, or maybe territories that the other apes know, and they can have some kind of community agreement associated with the naming of the various territories. My theory is that the apes will generate names for mountains, sea, beaches, islands, this kind of stuff, just through the naming conventions, because there'll be group naming associated with the various kind of geographical locations. But one of the interesting things with the territories, I'll wait till it gets to 9, is you can see that the different apes have. Let me just pause it. So let's move ape between ape, and you can see here that well, let's go back to that ape. Okay, some of these apes, and it does depend pretty well on the landforms, but sometimes you have apes that basically stick in the same area, so this is a good example. And really, the previous ape from that was a good example as well, because it's got wraparound, so this wraps around to that. And the thing that interests me with the development of territories is that if the language evolves along the lines of naming conventions associated with particular islands, then it'll probably impact other aspects of the language as well. The early part of this was just to add, let's move back to this, add territorial naming, so you can say search for mate, blah blah blah, now at and then the name of the territory, and the kind of agreed upon name of the territory, and probably I'll also give the territory coordinates in brackets to explain what it's referred to, with the view that potentially, different groups of apes will not come to agreement associated with territorial naming because they won't actually have interactions with other apes, and then you could get some really quite interesting, references associated with territories that have different names, and the naming conventions would also identify the kinds of apes. The other interesting thing that you find with the territory grouping is that you can very easily identify newly born apes, because you visually get used to seeing these numbers. When it gets to, I think there's near the 64-bit, not 64-bit, near the 16-bit maxima, it then immediately halves down, so these numbers will never grow larger than the 16-bit maximal. But it is a very interesting means of getting a sense of the ape's perspective, and also the kind of areas that the apes congregate in. And some of them are real. This is an interesting example of wraparound, because basically this is the same territorial area. But some of them are real travellers, and others tend to stay in one place. And it'll be interesting to see actually, what changes. Let's continue to run forever. So just running. Some violence there. So what else is new? I think I've probably already displayed the Noble Ape communication audio out, but if I haven't, let me do so just now. That's a good method. Okay. So if you haven't heard this previously, this is some Noble Ape speech. So obviously this is going to improve given some work, but the plan is actually to represent this in real time, so you can hear the apes talking, basically, and there'll be stereo effects, and based on the direction facing, you can hear the various ape calls, ape speech coming in stereo, and also the ape that you've selected speaking as well, in a kind of central primary way. And it'll be interesting actually to do optimizations based on this, because you'll be able to hear the speech interaction in real time, and this in and of itself will probably give some feedback associated with the speech. So it's still really early days with regards to this, particularly the real-time component, which obviously isn't currently connected. But I think when that comes together, certainly there will be a lot of development. I mean, very similar to all the great stuff that you get with visualization, basically. It gives you an ability to develop. I mean, this is an interesting ape here. Basically lived in the same island area, so from a little bit outside. But yeah, you get to see this amazing kind of sense of, this is an explorer Noble Ape right here. Kind of gone all the way up here and around. Anyway, so that's the current development with Noble Ape. I just wanted to give an update associated with the stuff that I've done recently. There's a lot more stuff going on. Obviously, this is really cool. I like this in particular. Dynamic scaling with the brain code. So, anyway, Tom Noble Ape in the Bay Area, signing out.